Welcome to True Crime Unleashed. I must say, this is the first time I've seen a victim's family be on 3 talk shows in one day. Yes, Stephen Christy Gonzalez was on 3 morning shows in one day. First, CBS News This Morning. Second, The Today Show. And third, Good Morning America. Let's get into it, guys.
To other news, let's go over to it.
All right, Rachel and Ginger, thank you. Now to the judge in the Idaho college murders case, lifting the order that banned police and prosecutors from talking about the case. The suspect pleaded guilty earlier this month to brutally killing 4 students in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. We're joined now by Kaylee Goncalves' parents, Steve and Christy, along with their attorney, Shannon Gray. Thank you all so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it. Christy, I'd like to start with you first, because as we noted there, the lifting of this gag order now means that more evidence documents can be revealed to the public. People who are involved in the case, investigators can speak openly. What more do you hope to learn in the days and weeks ahead?
Just details surrounding what happened to Kaylee. We don't really have that. So that's, and just how the investigation unfolded and how they found out who the suspect was and leading up to the arrest, just that information we just want to know about Kaylee. And we've gone all this time not knowing the details, and we really want those details.
And Steve, as we mentioned, Kohberger pleaded guilty. He's expected to spend the rest of his life behind bars, but you oppose this plea deal. Why is that?
Death penalty is the ultimate in providing justice for my daughter. And I don't know what kind of father wouldn't want the most for their child. So I didn't want shortcuts. And, death in prison is 23 hours of isolation, and you don't have the influence that you do when you're in general pop and when you're going around writing papers or doing certain things to get influence. I don't want this guy writing about what he did to our kids. And I don't want him, flexing in there and getting away with things.
You mentioned
Mind you, is saying the same stuff that he said on the CBS Good Morning Show. So it's rinse and repeat right now in this interview.
the death penalty as part of this. He avoids that with this plea deal. But could it have been done differently? Let's say, for example, he talked about the motive, why he committed these murders, where the murder weapon is. If that information were revealed as part of this plea deal, would you have felt differently?
100%. I mean, we spent 3 years. There's a right way to end this. There's a right way to do this, and not a shortcut. And for me to pretend like there was shortcuts weren't taken, it's not part of me.
Shannon, from a legal perspective, do you see this as a shortcut that the prosecution moved through? I mean, we know that some of the families ultimately did support this plea agreement.
Well, ultimately, the family thought that, they had a strong case, right? They had a case that they could prove, and they could get the death penalty in this case. And like Steve said, the difference between doing a life sentence, being in general population, having TV, having all access to the things that he wants to do, versus a death penalty sentence, which you're incarcerated 23 hours a day, 1 hour you're out. They knew that they were never going to see him die. But his life in prison would have been a lot different. And so not finding out any answers about it, not finding out, getting any information about the case. That's why it's important now that the discovery, the family gets a copy of the discovery on the case. That's one of the
Shannon Gray made the same statement that he's making right now on CBS News this morning. I can understand going on morning shows But when you go on 3 different morning shows in the same day, but you're saying the same thing, it feels like rinse and repeat to me. That's what it feels like. They're recycling their story that they said on the last one and just regurgitating it on the next one. And why are they so desperate to get a hold of all the discovery before anybody else has a chance to get it? They're talking like they already know that this man's guilty and that he did it. But if they're wanting to look at all the discovery, maybe in the back of their mind, they're having doubts.
Things we've done. We had a conversation with the prosecutors already. We've asked for a copy of that discovery. They're going to provide it to us. We hope they keep their promise, because if they don't, we're left with public records requests for the next 2 or 3 years with the city of Moscow, Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police, FBI. So we're hoping we get that discovery, we get some of the answers that they want, and find out what went on.
You mentioned a conversation with the prosecutors. Have you had some of these conversations behind the scene in a way in which you learned more about Kaylee's final moments, perhaps how she fought for her life? What more have they been able to tell you that has not been revealed through the court proceedings so far?
Nothing.
We learned more in books, like the U of I book. U of I knew more about our children than we did. You know, now Mabbitt, the coroner, did give us some details, and thank.
That's very interesting. What he just said there. The U of I knew more about these murders than they did. Is that a little nugget that he's dropping right there?
Thankfully, she did that, but we'd have to confirm those, because those details were given with, an explanation that she's not, an investigator. So she was like, this is how she passed away, but she didn't give us all the details, and we want to hold them accountable for all those details.
Sentencing is expected next week. You both mentioned to me earlier that you plan to be there.
Yes.
What else do you hope to hear during that time? What do you expect?
Well, we're not really expecting much, as we already know what the judge is sentencing him to. So that's not going to be anything new. So we're just going to give our victims.
Do you want to hear? Do you hope to hear more from Kohberger himself?
I haven't been expecting that. I don't expect to hear him say anything.
I don't even think they'll ask him. That's what we asked them, was to, if he's going to make an agreement, plea deal, then make sure that he says he did it solely, and gives information that, if the world's saying, they'd be like, he's guilty. He knew exactly where the kill kit was. He knew exactly where the knife was. And that would just end all the rumors, and we could just move on.
Before we go, I know that both of you have been incredible advocates for your daughter. How do you want everyone to remember Kaylee?
Just remember Kaylee as, the light that she was. She was funny. She was smart. She loved having a good time with her friends. She loved her family. She loved taking her dog out, just the happy person that she was. She was, just ready to take on life, stepping into the big world. And she was happy to do that.
Yeah. We want the world, with your audience, to remember Kaylee Jade, and remember each one of these victims, and forget about this guy.
Well, I'm sure they will. And Steve and Christy and Shannon, thank you so much for your time. Truly.
This entire interview was rinse, regurgitate, repeat. Rinse, regurgitate, repeat. That's how I felt. Three different morning shows. And they all three said the same thing on all three morning shows. CBS News this morning. Was the original. Today Show, rinse and repeat. Good Morning America, rinse and repeat. At least in this one, Steve didn't talk about prescriptions, where he did in the CBS morning show one. Because Bryan went to school for criminology, not pharmaceuticals. So how can he write a prescription in prison? I do feel for them losing their daughter. I really do. But some of the stuff that he said, not being told everything. Well, maybe the reason why they weren't told everything is because for the last 2.5 years, they were doing stuff like this, going on media press tours for the last 2.5 years. And you heard Shannon Gray that him, Steve, and Christie have already talked to the prosecution about getting first dibs on every single bit of discovery. What about the Chapins? What about Ben Mogan? What about Jeff Kernodle? What about Karen Laramie? What about Kara Kernodle? I'm sure that they would want to see the discovery too, not just Stephen Christie. But how they're talking, they know that he did it, and it's a slam dunk. They had all the evidence. Really? Then why would you want to see all the discovery? Unless you have in the back of your mind just a little bit of doubt. Just a little bit of doubt that Bryan didn't do it. And you want to see all that discovery to see who actually did. Or if there wasn't more people involved than just one. Everyone have a good Monday afternoon. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that bell notification for all my new uploads. You guys have a good Monday. This is True Crime Unleashed. I'm out. Peace.